Imagine a city so broken that the world had stopped expecting it to rise again. Some cities fall in war, others disappear into history. But there is a third kind, cities that remain standing in memory only because no one believes they can ever be restored. Jerusalem, in the middle of the 5th century BC, was one of those cities. For more than 100 years, its walls had remained broken, its gates had been reduced to ash, its towers had collapsed into heaps of stone. Every breach in the wall was an open invitation to invaders. Every night was lived without security. Every morning was a reminder of national disgrace. To the Persian Empire, Jerusalem was nothing more than yesterday's tragedy. A forgotten city, with forgotten people, and a forgotten future. But history was about to take an unexpected turn. Not through an emperor, not through a general, not through an army marching over the horizon, but through one unlikely man, a servant, a cupbearer, a man whose greatest weapon was neither sword nor spear, but conviction. His name was Nehemiah.
And remarkably, the story that survives is not a royal inscription carved into stone, not the boast of a conquering king, but something far more personal. A memoir, written, scholars believe, by Nehemiah himself. His own eyewitness account, his own fears, his own prayers, his own impossible mission. Because before he rebuilt Jerusalem's walls, he first had to decide whether he was willing to lose everything. To understand that decision, we must begin, not among ruins, but inside one of the most magnificent palaces the ancient world had ever seen. The year, around 445 BC. The place, Susa, the glittering winter capital of the Persian Empire. A city of marble halls, golden columns, royal gardens, and unimaginable wealth. At its center ruled King Artaxerxes, the most powerful monarch on earth. Standing only a few steps from his throne was Nehemiah. Not a soldier, not a governor, not even a nobleman. He was the king's cupbearer. To modern ears, that title sounds almost ordinary. In reality, it was one of the most trusted positions in the entire empire. Before the king drank his wine, Nehemiah drank it first. If poison waited in the cup, Nehemiah would die. So the king could live. His life was the king's insurance policy. His loyalty, beyond question. His future, secure. Until one ordinary day changed everything. A delegation arrives from Judah. Among them, Nehemiah's own brother, Hanani. Naturally, Nehemiah asks the question any exile would ask. How is Jerusalem? The answer is devastating. The walls, still broken. The gates, still burned. The people who survived the exile living in great trouble, living in shame, exposed to every enemy around them. Then something extraordinary happens. Nehemiah does nothing. At least, not immediately. He doesn't rush into action. He doesn't draft a plan. He doesn't give a speech. Instead, he sits down and he weeps. For days, he mourns. He fasts. He prays. That moment tells us everything about the man before it tells us anything about the mission. Most men in his position would have looked away. After all, he lived safely inside a royal palace. Jerusalem was 800 miles away. Someone else's problem. Someone else's responsibility. But Nehemiah could not ignore what broke God's heart. And in those long days of prayer, something irreversible began to grow. A decision. One that once spoken aloud could never be taken back. Because the next room he would enter contained the most powerful ruler in the world. In the ancient Near East, royal protocol was not mere etiquette. It was survival. A servant who appeared sorrowful before the king risked being seen as a bad omen, a threat, or simply an irritation. Nehemiah himself tells us he had never before appeared sad in the king's presence. Then, the moment arrives. King Artaxerxes studies his face. Why are you sad? The room falls silent. Nehemiah later records the moment with remarkable honesty. I was very much afraid. Everything hangs on his next words. He tells the king about Jerusalem, the city of his ancestors, its ruined walls, its burned gates, its disgrace. The king listens carefully, then asks a question that changes history forever. What is it you want? For a brief heartbeat, time seems to stop. Before answering, Nehemiah prays. Silently. A prayer no one else hears. Just one desperate conversation between himself and God. Then he speaks. He asks for permission to leave the palace. Letters guaranteeing safe passage across the empire. Timber from the royal forests. Everything necessary to rebuild a city lying in ruins hundreds of miles away. It is an astonishing request. Yet history tells us it is entirely believable. Persian kings often supported provincial building projects. Trusted officials could receive royal authorization. The request was possible, but never guaranteed. The risk remained enormous. Then, the king says, yes. In a single conversation, an impossible mission becomes possible. When Nehemiah finally reaches Jerusalem, he surprises everyone. He announces nothing, claims nothing, celebrates nothing. For 3 days,
He simply watches. Then, under cover of darkness, accompanied by only a handful of trusted men,
he quietly rides through the broken city, the Valley Gate, the Dung Gate, the Fountain Gate, examining every collapsed section, every burned entrance, every shattered stone. The local officials do not even know why he has come. This isn't hesitation. It is leadership. Before asking broken people to rebuild broken walls, he first understands the full extent of the damage himself. Only then does he gather the people. He points toward the ruins surrounding them. You see the distress we are in. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, that we may no longer live in disgrace. Something remarkable happens. Hope returns. The people answer together. Let us rise up and build. One man's private burden has become an entire nation's mission. But whenever God begins restoring, opposition is never far behind. 3 powerful regional leaders emerge: Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the Ammonite, Geshem the Arab. Their influence depended upon Jerusalem remaining weak. Their first weapon? Ridicule. They laugh, they mock, they sneer. Can these burned stones live again? But when mockery fails, the threats become real. Conspiracies form. Plans for attack are made. Jerusalem prepares for war while trying to rebuild. Nehemiah answers with extraordinary strategy. Half the workers stand guard, half continue building. Every laborer carries tools and weapons. One hand lays stone, the other grips a sword. Even while sleeping, their weapons remain beside them. This is no peaceful construction project. It is rebuilding under siege. When intimidation fails, the enemy changes tactics once again. 4 separate invitations arrive. Come, meet with us in the plain of Ono. The proposal appears diplomatic. Nehemiah knows better. It is almost certainly an ambush. His answer echoes across history. I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. Still, the attacks continue. A prophet named Shemaiah urges Nehemiah to hide inside the temple. It sounds like wise counsel. In reality, it is carefully manufactured fear. If Nehemiah enters unlawfully, his reputation will be destroyed. He sees through the deception and refuses. The enemy had tried mockery, violence, politics, religion, fear. None of it worked. Then, the impossible happens. After lying in ruins for more than 100 years, Jerusalem's wall is completed in just 52 days. Even the surrounding nations are stunned. Their confidence collapses because they know no ordinary human effort could explain what has happened.
The wall itself would not last forever. Few walls ever do.
But that is not why history remembers Nehemiah. History remembers the grief that became vision. The vision that became strategy. The strategy that overcame ridicule, sabotage, fear, and impossible odds. Nehemiah possessed no throne, no army, no royal bloodline. Only the courage to act when everyone else accepted the ruins. And perhaps that is why his story still speaks today. Because every generation inherits broken walls of its own. The only question is, who will have the courage to rebuild them?